In a world obsessed with explanations, with facts and rules and certainties, imagination and the fun of the game sometimes gets lost. In tabletop gaming, that can be a real tragedy. Today, I want to talk about why creativity, in my opinion, will always trump competition when it comes to what makes wargaming truly magical. In tabletop gaming, there's a point where following the rules too closely starts to squeeze the fun out of the game. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in, disguised as balance, fairness, or playing it properly. But after a while, you realize the best moments aren't in the rulebook. They happen when you bend it or ignore it altogether. Let me explain. We live in an information-driven society. Everything has to be explained. Everything has to make sense. And yet, some of the greatest moments in storytelling come from the unexplained. Take Tom Bombadil in The Lord of the Rings. He doesn't fit the narrative mechanics of Middle-earth. He isn't explained. He isn't categorized. And for many readers, that is uncomfortable. But for me, Tom Bombadil is one of the best parts of the story. He represents something bigger, something unknown. And it's that not knowing that makes Middle-earth feel alive and boundless. Tabletop gaming should be the same. We shouldn't be afraid of the unknown, the imperfect, the unexpected. We shouldn't feel chained to rigid structures if breaking them creates a better, richer experience. There's a strange idea in some circles that the rulebook must be obeyed without question, that everything must be fair, balanced, and official. But we found this is not always the case. The game writer or publisher doesn't know the story unfolding on your table better than you do. If you and your group have a better idea, if you feel a rule needs bending or breaking to serve the narrative or the spirit of the battle, why wouldn't you? One Page Rules gets it right. At the start of the rulebook, it states, when playing a complex game, there are going to be occasions where a situation is not covered by the rules, or a rule does not seem quite right. When that is the case, use common sense and personal preference to resolve the situation. So I'm not saying just make the rules up as you go along, because that leads to chaos and unhappy players. But take a guide from that one-page rules book, and if everyone agrees, if everyone wants to tell a better story, or by changing a rule, the game becomes more enjoyable, then why not? And it doesn't matter what rule system you are playing. Why can't a squat force ally with Chaos Marines to defend their asteroid mine against Imperial invaders? Why can't the Ultramarines fight side by side with the Word Bearers against a Tyranid hive fleet that's about to devour both their worlds? The real world isn't neat. It's messy. Alliances form and break in ways no one expects. Battles are rarely fair. Why should our games be any different? So one house rule we have adopted when we're wargaming is no matter what rule system we are playing, when it comes down to the minutiae of weapon ranges and line of sight, in a 50-50 situation, we go with whatever will cause the most damage as the move to play. We have Dr. Vesuvius to thank for that suggestion, who made it during one of our live streams. And taking that concept of adapting the rules further, one of the things I think we should embrace, which is less about the rules and more about the lore, is the twists in our battles. Rules for regiments changing side mid-battle, secret objectives that only reveal themselves partway through a game. We had a battle where halfway through, an entire regiment, bribed, blackmailed, or mind-controlled, turned on their allies. Imagine the drama, the shock, the scramble to adapt. And yes, it made a difference to the outcome of the game. But those are the moments that players talk about for years. A lot of rule sets include hidden setups and objective-based play. So use those rules to make the game more engaging. Not just to win. Real battles are rarely fair. An extreme example of this is Rorke's Drift, a tiny British force holding out against overwhelming odds. Fair? Not at all. Memorable? Legendary. Our tabletop games can be the same. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. Sometimes an underdog victory is sweeter precisely because it shouldn't have happened. You see, when competition becomes the only goal, creativity and enjoyment can both suffer. You end up with players who only choose the best units, build the strongest lists, who play the optimal moves. Too much of that, and gaming sessions become stagnant and predictable. Now that's fine if you're entering a tournament, because that's what tournaments are all about. And they in themselves are a really important part of our hobby. It's one that reaches out to a whole new market of gamers. In many cases, those tournaments offer a reward to the winner. But more importantly, I think they provide a positive, newsworthy focus to propagate the hobby to a much wider player base. Putting competitive gaming aside, I'd rather play a campaign where the odds are stacked against me, but the narrative is glorious, where my battered troops hold the line just long enough for civilians to evacuate, where a lone hero falls heroically, not because it was efficient, but because it made for an epic moment and a better tale. In narrative gaming, it's the moments that matter, not the final score. Think of it this way. In an asymmetrical game where one side outmatches the other and is doomed to lose, make the objective something achievable. For example, can they hold on against all odds for 3 turns? Because as part of a campaign, that last stand, which might result in the destruction of that smaller force, it could play out as a victory if that small force ties up a much bigger one. The smaller force could put the larger one at a strategic disadvantage in terms of the campaign. So, when you free yourself from the tyranny of balance and the obsession with officialdom, gaming becomes pure again. It becomes a creative act. You can forge new alliances, invent new factions, write new histories. You can play battles that defy expectations, that aren't fair and that aren't tidy, but that feel real and alive. In the end, it's your table, your story, your universe, and I absolutely get it that this sort of approach to play is not for everyone. But if you have the imagination to dream it and friends joining you for the ride, that's all you need. For us, rules are a framework, not a cage. Let them guide you when they help, and leave them behind when they don't. You can create moments of mystery, moments that aren't fully explained, moments that stay with you. And that's the kind of gaming I love. That's the kind of gaming I want to champion. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you believe tabletop gaming is about fun and stories first. I'd love to hear your greatest tabletop twist or unexpected alliance in the comments. And with that, I'll see you on the battlefield.